Hello, Big Sky in Southwest Montana and fans of the Big Sky Town Hall. My name is Eric Ladd. I'd like to welcome you to the third session of the Big Sky Town Hall. I am the CEO of Outlaw Partners, and I'm also the publisher of Explore Big Sky News and Media. And today I'm joined by Joe O'Connor, who's the managing editor for Outlaw Media Sources and Explore Big Sky. And today we've put together a pretty robust lineup of speakers to help keep people educated on not only what's happening in Big Sky, but the surrounding area. And we found this to be a very, good format to be able to deliver some very important information to you, in addition to the newspaper and the town crier and some of the other media outlets that we are doing. I will tell you that the last couple of weeks we've had over 5,000 people engage with this, so I appreciate you taking some time to watch this. And I've also appreciated the feedback that you've sent us. There's been a lot of good suggestions of speakers to have on there, and some of them have joined us today. How the format's going to work today is we do have 6 great speakers. In a moment here, I'm going to talk a little bit about who they are and what they'll be talking about. We'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes with each speaker. If you do have some questions during their Q&A, you're welcome to either through Facebook or Zoom submit the questions, and we'll do our best to try to address those questions as we go through this. So here are our speakers today in the order that we'll be going out with. We'll be starting with the Gallatin City County Health Department. We're very thankful to have Matt and Tracy from the Health Department join us today. Then we'll be dropping over to Ron Edwards and Scott Bucher from the Big Sky Water and Sewer District to talk a little bit about what's happening there. And there is a vote initiative that's going to be coming up in Big Sky. So we thought this would be a good time to talk a little bit about that, the needs there and this upcoming vote. We will have Tim Kent after that, the branch president from First Security Bank. He'll be talking a little bit about the lending environment and what's happening with small businesses in this area, and also the overall lending environment as it relates to real estate and other small businesses, kind of extending beyond some of the government aid that's going on. Then we've got another hometown hero right now, I'd like to call him, Josh Treasure from Roxy's grocery market. He'll be here to talk a little bit about what that's been like to be in that grocery business the last couple of weeks. He's also the chair of the sustainability committee, so we'll have Josh talk a little bit about what's happening on the sustainability effort in our area. And then we'll close out with another hometown hero, Omania. She's the owner of Lotus Pad, and she'll be talking a little bit about what it's like to be in the restaurant business right now. Interesting time to be in, obviously, that. But let's start off with the elephant in the room, and that is COVID. And we're really thankful to have some experts from the county health department join us today. So I'd like to welcome Matt Kelly and Tracy Knoedler from the Gallatin City County Health Department. So thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us, Eric. We really appreciate it. We're learning the new technology along with everybody else, but hopefully this will stick around, even after COVID, and we'll be able to engage with the community in different ways.
No, absolutely. Well, let me tell you that I'm certainly grateful for everything you guys have done. You guys have been thrusted into a pretty interesting situation. I'm sure you never trained for something to come this fast and furious, but I've appreciated what you guys have done. I guess just maybe start off with, if you could give us from the county perspective and from your office perspective on kind of what's happening in our region and any particular updates, and then maybe from there we'll dial it into a little bit more about what's happening in Big Sky.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of set the scene, I'm the director of the health department, and non-COVID days, Tracy Knoedler, who is sitting to my left, is our human services director. She's still our human services director. It means she reports directly to me and oversees about 2/3 of our staff here. During these days, I continue to be health officer, but Tracy is really overseeing a great deal of our operations, including our work to identify cases, investigate those cases, really understand what the case contacts are, and stop transmission. And so she's here and she can talk more about that. At kind of a high level view, I would say, it's important to know right now we've identified 139 cases of COVID-19 in Gallatin County. I'm glad to say we only have one person hospitalized as of today. Throughout Montana, we have 365 cases and 29 people hospitalized, and we've had 6 deaths so far. We haven't had a death in Gallatin County yet, and we're extremely happy about that and hoping that holds out. And the other thing I would like to say is, of those 139 cases, I think it's important for people to understand not all those people are sick at the same time. And we believe about 110, maybe even more, depending on what happened today, we can classify as recovered. So as we move through this, those cases that we identified early on during the pandemic, they're hopefully getting better. We're in touch with them on a day-to-day basis, and we think about 110 of them right now we've been able to classify as recovered. That doesn't mean they're totally symptom-free. That means they're improving. Their trajectory is in good shape, and most importantly, they're no longer contagious to the public. They're no longer a public health risk, just because of the length of time they've had it. Last week we had a press conference with Bozeman Health. They've been looking at, as we have some of the modeling that's out there, to try and figure out what might happen in the future. They're building their surge planning, including for the Big Sky Medical Center, around an assumption of a peak around the last week of April, around April 26th. I want to caution that those projections change day to day. They're not destiny, and they're definitely not static projections. What happens today will impact what the projections are down the road. Overall, throughout Gallatin County, I would say that it's important to know that we have a sustained community transmission, evidence of sustained community transmission. What does that mean? That just means that we have, with 139 cases, not all of those have come in from the outside the county. We're seeing people within the county give it to other people within the county. And that really is an important indicator for us, and it changes the way we do business in some ways. The other thing to know is that really almost everybody is dealing with this. Virtually every organization of any size with that many cases in the county has dealt with one or two people who have been diagnosed, or maybe have somebody in their family who has been diagnosed. So we're working really across the county with many different organizations in many different ways. Some of the good news, though, we have is that there's some evidence emerging that the social distancing, the price that we're all paying by being apart, by having meetings like this, there was some evidence that the social distancing is paying off. The first thing I would say is that, I don't want to jinx it, but our low hospitalization number, it's really good to see that. It's really important to see that. We have not seen a significant number of people showing up at the hospital that we did not know were cases. And that's an indication that we didn't miss a whole bunch of people at the beginning of the pandemic, and maybe an indication that some of the closures that we put in place and some of the social distancing measures that we put in place in time to really reduce the chances of transmission of the disease. The last 4 or 5 days, we've been in single-digit number of new cases. We had no new cases so far today, but that is important to understand that we're coming off of Easter Sunday. The number of tests that we did was somewhat lower than what we would normally do on a day-to-day basis, so I wouldn't make too much of that. And finally, I wanted to say, while we don't know when it's going to happen, the health department is really planning for that phased reopening. And I know people are anxious to get back to normal. I want to be careful about how we talk about that, because I think what we need to think about is how to get back to our new normal. I don't think we're going to get totally back to normal until we figure out a way to build immunity into our population. And that likely will come once we get a vaccine. But that doesn't mean we have to live like we're living now until we have a vaccine. And we're already planning for ways that we can do a phased reopening. We're talking to our partners in the governor's office and the state, and we're reaching out more and more to business owners to really get their ideas about how they think they can operate safely. Talking to their health officers in their large communities. And I think that the key there is to find that place where we have a new normal, where we can continue to function and businesses can get through the year ahead, but we're not doing it in a way that endangers public health and tips over our healthcare system. And with that, I'll see if Tracy has anything to add, and then we can take questions.
So as Matt mentioned, many of the cases that we've seen to date are recovered, and that definition is very specific, and we don't classify someone as recovered until we're confident that they can return to work or whatever whatever they have going on in their lives. And that definition is specific in that you have to be 7 days past the initial symptom, when your initial symptoms started, as well as 72 hours fever-free without the use of antipyretics or things such as Tylenol and ibuprofen, which bring your fever down. And you also have to demonstrate an improvement in other symptoms. So as we are releasing people from isolation, we are going through and really diligently making sure that they're meeting those criteria before we allow them to be what we're terming closed or released from isolation. So we're also keeping a close eye on those individuals, and if they are still exhibiting symptoms or getting worse, that is a pretty critical turning point for this disease course. If they hit that 7-day point and they're still experiencing symptoms as they had been for the previous 7 days or worsening, that's when we're pulling in our partners in the medical community to start helping us to maintain them medically. Matt mentioned that we're doing case investigations right now. It's really important that we be able to do these contact investigations to contain the spread of this disease. And right now we have cases that our case number is increasing, but we don't feel as though it's increasing at a rate that's unmanageable. And our team is doing a fantastic job of reaching out to those people, providing them guidance and maintaining that isolation, and then their families to be able to adhere to quarantine recommendations. So there's some question out there about what the difference is between isolation and quarantine. And when you're ill, we place you under isolation. So you need to remain away from people the best you can while those symptoms are still active. We help people understand what to watch for when they get to that 7-day point, when we talk to them again and go through what they need to be released. The individuals that they were in contact with continue to be under that quarantine, which is well people who do run the risk of developing symptoms because they've been in contact with someone who was sick. So when you hear those two words, they are very different, and sometimes they're used interchangeably. So we just wanted to be sure that people understand that there is isolation and quarantine, and they are two different things. And then the other thing that I wanted to stress, and Matt mentioned a little bit about Bozeman Health, but our relationship with Bozeman Health and Big Sky Medical Center is fantastic. And they have been great in helping us make sure that we're able to support individuals who have been diagnosed with COVID-19 and get them the support that they need. And up there in Big Sky, where it's relevant for you guys, they are a great partner.
Wonderful. Well, that's a very thorough update. I kind of wish that was on CNN. You guys did a great job with that, so thank you for that. Matt, one question, and then I think we'll shift gears and maybe just touch on Big Sky a little bit, is you talked a little bit about that angst of people wanting to get back to some sort of normal. Obviously, our community is heavily based on tourism and, a lot of transient traffic. This is everything from the restaurants to the guide services to the events to, farmers markets, et cetera, et cetera. And I know we don't have a crystal ball, but I guess how would you address that concern, and how can we be part of that solution on recognizing that if, a community like this were to lose its summer, it would be even more devastating. And there's certainly hope to salvage some of that business this summer.
I'll tell you, it's the thing that when I wake up at night, it's what I'm thinking about, because I know that we have some really important decisions ahead of us as a community. I have significant responsibility, as does the Board of Health, as does the governor in this. But we really regard this, if we're going to be successful, it needs to be a community effort. And the reason I say that is because what I've likened this to our staff is threading a needle. Because we really need to be careful about, we're really paying close attention, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to reopen, to help those businesses, to throw those businesses a lifeline, because I know that businesses out there, we talk about healthcare providers and we talk about first responders and the sacrifices that they're making, what I'm trying to do increasingly is to acknowledge the sacrifice that our business owners and their employees are making across our community. We owe them our gratitude and we owe them a commitment to a sustained recovery. What the trick of that is, though, is if we go too fast and if we go too soon, we run the risk of creating new cases. And that doesn't happen in a linear way. What we've seen recently is single-digit case counts. What we're seeing in some other states, South Dakota is one of them, is double-digit case counts on some days. And instead of the cases increasing kind of on a 45-degree angle like that, in epidemiology, where you have that exponential growth, it can kind of go like that pretty quickly. And that's what we're trying to avoid, because that's what can tip a hospital over. That's where you can get to the point where a hospital can't deal with it anymore. The public health system can't deal with it anymore. So we're being very careful about that. And that's really important for businesses too, because the last thing we want to do, we've all paid a great price and we're seeing some benefits of that. The worst outcome that we can imagine would be to pay that price and to give back all the dividends because we're going too fast or because we're going too soon. But I think the question everyone's going to have is like, well, when? What does that mean? And I can say, like, as of right now, the federal guidance, well, let's start at the local level. The governor has a directive that's in place, a stay-at-home order through April 24th. The Board of Health on Wednesday, the Gallatin City County Board of Health on Wednesday, is going to consider a measure to extend the local restrictions to April 24th to match the governor. I think sometime early next week, we'll probably find out what the governor intends to do. And I'll tell you, he's been reaching out to local health officers. He's been reaching out across the community along with his team. At some point in time, the other thing I'll point out, the federal guidance on restrictions on social distancing lasts until the end of April. We're currently seeing fairly manageable case counts in Gallatin County. I am hopeful, but I'm also careful about saying this. I'm hopeful that we get to sometime in May, depending on what we're seeing in our case data, depending on what the governor does, and depending on the guidance that we get from the federal level, where we can start in a phased way and in a slow way reopening things. And the way that's probably going to look when it happens, and I don't know when that's going to be, but when that happens, it's going to be us opening up things in a fairly modest way and waiting for a couple of weeks to see what impact that has. And the reason we have to wait is because often when you have those contacts, when you increase the number of contacts, we're not going to see the results of that for 7 to 14 days, that incubation period for the disease. And what we want to do is we want to calibrate this so when we do open, we do so in a measured way, and we don't have to go back. We don't have to close down because we're starting to see a spike in cases or a spike in deaths. And so we're doing a number of things. We're reaching out through focus groups to business owners to really get their ideas for how they can operate safely. We're thinking through things like how we can put limitations based on occupancy limits in the establishments. And we're thinking through ways that we can put a cap on the number of people that would be in any setting at any point in time.
Sure. And
start small and then move on from there. I know that's not a date certain. I can't give you a date certain, but that's kind of what I know right now and the way I'm thinking about it right now.
Great. Well, I think that the nice thing to hear is that it's being talked about and that's progress. So it's nice that it's at least being considered. And I think that, like I said, and speaking on behalf of a lot of business owners up here, if there's an opportunity for us to get our voice in there, especially with us being tourism based and recognizing that all of our industry pretty much relies on body heat in some way, shape, or form. So
we may reach out to you because the situation in Big Sky and West Yellowstone is particularly complex because so much of your economy is based on people coming there. And so it's not that doesn't happen in Bozeman, but we'll be reaching out, and maybe through your organization is one way we can do that.
All right. Well, thank you. And I guess shifting gears to a local level, I guess anything you can kind of share or discuss as it relates to Big Sky on a hyper local level. I know recently it was reported there was a small cluster outbreak up here. But in general, can you kind of discuss how Big Sky numbers have been trending in relation to county numbers? Is there anything to overly be concerned about in relation to Big Sky or what we're seeing out of our area?
I'm not seeing anything to be overly concerned about today. I think that, and we're not seeing numbers that are out of context with what we're seeing in the Valley. I would say that we did identify late last week a group of cases that were connected to one particular construction site up on the mountain. We did a lot of case investigation with the state health department and with our partners at the construction site. There's a couple of things to know about that. That was kind of like putting a puzzle together, because when individuals started to get sick, the construction site did the right thing and they sent them home, and they went home to different counties in the state, and those cases came into those different counties. And so we really had to go to the state health department and kind of put those puzzle pieces together and try and figure out who was reporting that they had contact with the state site. And we identified 6 individuals who were associated with one particular site. But there's some good news in that. Number one, we haven't seen a case associated with that site since late March, since March 27th. So that's over 2 weeks ago. That's really good news. That's outside of the incubation period for the disease. The other thing I think that's good news is we were able to really connect all those individuals to one particular, or 5 of the 6 individuals to one particular work crew. And that really helps us understand how disease transmission may have been happening on the site, and gives us some confidence that when that work crew left the site, which they did more than 2 weeks ago, that we were able to really bear down and have an understanding of why we're not seeing more cases. The other thing I think that's important to understand is that what we're not saying is that you have 6 active cases in Big Sky. In fact, enough time has gone by that it's very unlikely that any of those people are still contagious. We would be following them if they were, and have them in isolation if they were. And the other factor that there is, most of those people left Big Sky before they even were diagnosed. We connected them to the site after the fact, and that was some of the work that we were doing last week. The other thing to know is we've had really, really great partnership with Suffolk Construction and the folks there, and they really have put in place some measures that we think are reasonable. Things like making sure that they're monitoring their employees on a daily basis, making sure that the places where employees gather are now outside, or that where employees at least have enough space to disperse and be 6 feet apart. They're telling me that they're fogging their offices and their stairwells to disinfect them. They've got signage in a lot of places. They've discontinued some of the busing that was happening, and they've acquired some more housing so people aren't doubled up in housing. They've gotten face shields for people, and they're using some high-tech equipment that I hadn't even heard of related to infrared cameras and that sort of thing. I think they're doing what they need to be doing, and they are pretty aggressively trying to find people who may be sick, and then working with us to get them treated and tested if necessary. So we did have that one, I guess you could call it a cluster of cases, but we haven't had a case in that site for over 2 weeks, and we're really getting good cooperation with the team up there. But other than that, we've had cases in Big Sky, just as we've had cases throughout the county. Some of those cases were from Big Sky. Some of those cases may have come into the community from the outside. That's the same as we're seeing in Bozeman and in the Valley as well.
Okay. Well, that's helpful, and I appreciate the insight there, and also I think it's great to hear kind of the proactive nature that Builder took in being able to kind of contain that. Joe, I know we ran a little bit over here, but this was such great information. Before we switch over to the next speaker, is there a question or two from some of the viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, Matt and Tracy, thank you for joining us. We do really appreciate the work you guys are doing, and it's a lot of it, so we can understand that. You mentioned so we reported on that story of the cases in Big Sky today. The last confirmed case was identified here in late March. It sounds like there were, some complexities that you were mentioning in the investigation process. So late March was a little while ago. Why did it take a couple of weeks to get the word out?
Well, so the way that public health works in Montana is every county has its own health department. And so we investigate cases that get assigned to Gallatin County. So if you go and get tested at Big Sky Medical Center and you live in Big Sky and you test positive, that case comes to Gallatin City County Health Department, and we get on the phone and we talk to you, and we would really identify what your exposures have been, and then we would start getting in touch with your close contacts and informing them that they're close contacts and giving them instructions of what to do to stay healthy. What happens when you have a situation like this is when you have people go to other counties, those cases are getting reported in other counties that we don't have any connection to except through the state health department. And so the way that we connect the dots here, the way we put that puzzle together, is that all the counties are reporting their cases and sending their case reports to the state health department. And so what I was able to do last week is sit down with the state health department and really look for cases that had some identification with that site. And what we're trying to do is really kind of detective work, is try and tell a story. And what we were seeing with the cases that we identified is that for the most part, they all got sick about the same time. They all got tested about the same time, and they all left the site about the same time. And so it was really important that we had cooperation from the construction company, because we didn't provide them a list of the names, but they were able to provide us some information related to who was working together, who was working with certain subcontractors up there. And that's how we were able to say, okay, 5 of these 6 cases are related to this one particular subcontractor that hasn't been on the site for some time. Mm-hmm. So that's really how that works. And it's kind of painstaking. And it takes a little bit of detective work and kind of putting puzzle pieces together. And so that's what's been going on and not just on this site. As you can imagine, we're doing this kind of across the county, and the state health department is doing this across the state. So that's kind of how this whole thing came together. Gotcha.
Well, we appreciate that. Last question, I have a follow-up from the audience. Kevin said, there are a number of articles talking about the need for swift virus and antibody testing to reopen our economy. Is Gallatin County contemplating such testing?
Well, we're contemplating it. It's not ready yet. We have a test we're really focused on right now is widening the pipeline of our testing, or the testing for people who have active disease. We are aware that there is antibody testing available, and we are hopeful that when we get some guidance from the federal level and the state level, that it is reliable, that we'll be able to expand that and keep track of that. I think one important piece of that, if we're going to do that sort of antibody testing, that we have a way to keep track of the people who have been tested. That's something similar to what we do with our immunization registry. That's really what an immunization is you're giving somebody those antibodies through a needle. And then we keep track of that through our immunization registry. So we have some experience keeping track of that. I think the main thing right now is we really need to be able to be confident that the antibody tests are reliable, and that they're available on the scale that would allow people to get that test. And the other thing that I would caution is, I've seen some estimates that, 97% of our population right now has not been exposed to the disease and is not going to have antibodies. So I would not expect that right away we're going to have this huge segment of the population that would have those antibodies. But over time, it could be a really important tool. That, as well as we move toward a vaccine, that's a way to give those, to build that immunity and to give those antibodies to people on a mass scale. Anything to add to that, Tracy?
No, I don't think so. Like Matt said, we want to be absolutely certain that the tests that we're providing are accurate. And that's our main question right now, as far as anything outside of our state health department or our hospital.
I think it was encouraging that we heard, Dr. Fauci last week saying that there's some of those antibody tests that seem to be moving toward the point where they'd be approved by the FDA, and we could be using them that way, and that would give individuals a sense of confidence if they did test positive for those antibodies.
Gotcha. Well, thank you guys for that. Eric, we'll send it back to you here.
Excellent. Well, I really am grateful for you guys taking so much time to talk to us, and we really dove in deep there, but to have your expertise on here was greatly appreciated. So Matt and Tracy, thank you for joining us, and if you don't mind, we'll probably invite you to come back in a week or two, and hopefully we've got some good progress to report. But thank you once again for your service and your hard work and your communication, and appreciate a little more frank and direct insight as to our community. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sitting here looking at Ron Edwards, and I remind you that I owe him a call. So Ron, I'll be calling you later on today. My phone message tree is pretty full right now. So have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for riding through that. We gave that a little extra time, but that was great to be able to get the county officials. Obviously, a lot of their decision-making impacts us, and so great to hear from them. As I stated, with these town halls, we're going to start to shift a little bit away from COVID and start to bring in some other community topics, because the world doesn't stop. Even though a lot of things have stopped, there's a lot of things that haven't stopped because of COVID. And one of them is what's happening in our water and sewer district. And there's an upcoming vote for a 1% tax to help out with the expansion and growth of that water and sewer district. So we've got two people here today to speak a little bit about what's happening there. We've got Ron Edwards, the longtime general manager of the Big Sky Water and Sewer District. And we also have Scott Bucher, who is, let's see here, senior project manager with the Water and Sewer District. So thank you guys for joining us today. Ron, maybe we'll start with you. Maybe if you can give us a little update of what's happening in your world. And obviously we've had a heck of a growth spurt the last couple of years, and how that's impacted the water and sewer district, and kind of bringing us to the point of where we're now at with this this vote for the 1% tax.
Sure. Thanks, Eric. And thanks for hosting these meetings. I think they're very helpful to the community. Before I get started, I'd like to thank Matt Kelly. He's been putting a lot of hours in for Gallatin County since this thing broke. I guess he's off the call now. And another person I get daily updates from is Pat Lonergan from the Gallatin County Emergency Management Services Office. County's been great about updating us as managers on the status of the COVID-19 in our county and statewide. It's been very helpful. So we've got a big project we've been working on. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, which hopefully works. And so we've been working on this for over a year. We hired an engineer to start working on a wastewater treatment plant upgrade, and that firm is AE2S. Scott Bucher has been my project engineer since the beginning, and he's on this call as well. We've been doing some public informational meetings as we lead up to this vote and election, which is going to happen May 5th. This is a substantial upgrade to our wastewater treatment plant. Got a few slides here. I always like to give people some context of what our district boundary is. This may be redundant for some of our viewers, but there's probably folks that haven't seen this. So we're a county water and sewer district, and we serve the Mountain Village up to the northern end of Cascade, up to Moonlight Basin. Moonlight is not in our district. They've got their own system. We're Lone Moose, Spanish Peaks, and then the Meadow Village and Aspen Groves approximate 4 by 7 miles. The yellow line in the picture is the county line. So we're complicated by the fact that we sit in 2 counties. This orange boundary is our resort tax district boundary. Our red boundary is us in the middle of that. So you can see from this that we're in the middle, but we're fairly small in terms of area. But I think in terms of the resort tax dollars that are generated through the entire resort tax district, they have figured that about 60% of the resort tax collections come from within our district. Certainly the mountain drives a lot of the tourism we get and the tourist dollars that come into our district. This is a aerial overview of our current treatment plant. That went online in 2004. It's a 0.65 MGD or 650,000 gallon a day treatment plant. You kind of build these things in 20-year increments. Our growth in Big Sky has driven our project planning for an upgrade sooner rather than later. So we started working on it about 18 years into our growth. And there was a study done by the Gallatin River Task Force. I think that ended in 2018. The conclusion of that was we want to maximize reuse of our treated water. That means snowmaking, groundwater disposals. The plant that we currently have is a type of plant that's not very conducive for that. So we're shifting to what's called an MBR treatment plant, a membrane bioreactor, which is an acronym for just a big mechanical plant. This is a overview which kind of shows our expansion area. We completed a land exchange deal with the Big Sky Community Organization last year, which has been very helpful in our project planning toward the new expansion. These are a couple renderings that we've recently gotten from our architects that are working on this. The area off to the left here is the area that's slated for the new expansion. Right of that is what's currently at our plant. The lower right here, kind of a takeoff. We haven't finalized what this thing will look like yet, but we're getting some good product out of our architects toward the final look of the plant. It's kind of a south looking north view. We met with resort tax 4 or 5 times toward the end of 2019, and we worked on a collaborative agreement with them, which basically has some key bullets in it listed here. Resort tax will pay for up to 60% of the project with the plant expansion, which equates to about $27 million. They'll pay 100% for a $12 million canyon project, and Scott will touch on that in a minute. We have in turn committed 500 single-family equivalents for workforce housing development, and that can be within our district boundary or outside of the district. And then we agreed that we would not come into the 3% pool for additional resort tax requests for the duration of this. This all hinges on this 1% vote, which will happen May 5th. It's being done as a mail ballot election, and the voting deadline is May 5. So here's some key dates. The ballots will go out April 17th. We're advising people that because it's May 5th deadline, you need to get it in the mail by April 28th. We at one time were going to be a drop-off site in our office here in Big Sky, but we closed our office to the public a few weeks ago, and we're going to continue to be closed for the near future. So that means that all the ballots would have to be mailed, or if you wanted to drop them off at the courthouse on May 5th, that would be an option as well. Duration of the tax would be through 2032, which is the term of the current resort tax. This is just a highlight of what goods and services are taxed. There's information on the resort tax website, which gets into the details of the types of things that are taxed in the district. We're going to fund the project through state revolving fund loan program, which is a state and federally funded infrastructure program. It'll be repaid through revenue bonds, which are on the user base. which goes to our sewer bill each month. We're going to ask if the 1% goes through, we get about $2 million annually from resort tax to pay that. If we are not successful getting the 1%, then we would be in the 3% queue requesting some assistance for the project as well. We've done a number of public meetings, informational meetings on our website. We record them and put them on a videos page. This dates back to 2017 when we started doing our first big informational meetings on the project. And our most recent meetings are up there. We did one on April 1st, and then there was a Canyon meeting also on April 1st that are both on our website. We've got a page dedicated for the wastewater update projects on our website as well. We've got a couple more meetings coming up on April 16th at 5:30. We'll be doing another online meeting focusing more on the plant upgrade itself, a little more detail on that. And then we've got one scheduled for April 30th at 1 p.m.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Ron. That was a very well organized presentation. So if I understand it correctly, obviously the biggest risk is in the event that this didn't happen, that you guys would have to then seek funds primarily from the primary pool of the 3%. And then also one of the bigger impacts is the Canyon project, which I think would be a nice dovetail, Scott, to give us a presentation. The Canyon project would be in jeopardy of happening.
Right. We recognize the timing of this is difficult at best, but we're moving ahead. We put in motion the election, months ago, and once you do that, you don't get to pull them back. So we're proceeding with the election, with the mail ballot election, and hopefully, we'll see what happens. But my board is committed to doing the upgrade either way at this point. So,
Scott, maybe if you could give us a quick update, just so that people that are not familiar with the Canyon project, you could just give us a high-level summary of what that entails.
Sure. Thanks. Wanted to show my screen here just to show you what the Canyon area district looks like. It's essentially goes south from the corral north of the 64-191 intersection about a quarter of a mile, so to capture that Bighorn Center area. So that's the north-south span. If you can see my screen right now, we did a survey to see how much wastewater is out there currently. We see that as about a third of the way built out to what it'll ultimately become. And what ultimately is going to slow it down or cap it would be water rights. So about 115,000 gallons per day on average of wastewater down there, and we see it potentially getting to about 305,000 gallons per day. So that's what we would be trying to sewer with this system. And, that's going to take several years for that to ultimately build out. But that was the scope of the study. The pounds per year you see on the screen there, that's nitrogen. That's really what's driving the project. That's what we're after, is trying to keep that nitrogen from reaching the groundwater and the Gallatin River. So we do that. We do models of these collection systems so we can cost them out. This screen's just showing you basically the spine of that model. It's right now, as it stands today, it's a pretty easily sewered region because it's all stretched out along 191, which makes it nice to go and capture it. The idea would be to bring that down by gravity to about the 64-191 intersection or thereabouts. Right there, we're showing a collection lift station out in front of Conoco that is entirely conceptual. We have talked to the owner about a potential lease if this were to happen. But you heard Ron talk about a $12 million resort tax funding. That would be to fund this lift station and the pipeline headed west up 64 to get this wastewater to Big Sky County Water and Sewer District's existing treatment plant that, as Ron explained, is going to go through a nice big expansion and upgrade in the coming 2 years. And we would take this wastewater and treat it to a much higher level than what's currently being achieved down there in the canyon, which is essentially just septic systems and community septic systems. So we can really get it out of that nitrogen and prevent pollution of groundwater and potentially pollution to the main stem of the Gallatin.
Scott, what type of lifespan would that system that you've outlined have for the canyon?
Oh, those pipelines, in an ideal world, they can last 100 years with ductile iron. The pump station, more of a 30 to 40 year life, but the structure, the concrete lasts. You're just in there switching out pumps and mechanical equipment. Longer than we need to worry about for sure, and just regular routine upkeep of infrastructure, just like Ron does up at the district right now, would need to occur down there at the district. And to get at that money, to get at that $12 million that the resort tax is putting in front of the voters, we need a canyon area district to form to manage that too. So resort tax has put I believe it's a 3-year sunset on that offer. And within that time period, folks living in the canyon area together and form a district and would manage that infrastructure long term. Ron will take the lift station and the pipelines to his plant, but this canyon area you see in the right screen, that's going to be a canyon area district owned, managed, and operated facilities.
Excellent. Well, that's been a very helpful update. I know Joe's got one question from our virtual audience, so I'll let him address that. And then what I would encourage viewers to do, we're going to move on to the next speaker after this, but we'll keep these guys around. And if you do have other questions, this is a very important topic and obviously some big dollars, but it's extremely important. So I would encourage you to continue to submit questions. And even if we don't address them at the end of today, we'll make sure that we can try to get it covered in one of our other news sources. But Joe, do you have a question?
Yeah, I did. Ron and Scott, thanks for sitting down with us. The vote on the increase to the resort tax is only voted on by residents of Gallatin County, but does it impact those who live in Madison County? This is a question from Kristen in our audience.
Yeah. Ron, you want to take it or do you want me to take it? Ron,
there we go. I think so the electorate basically decides this are the registered voters that live in the resort tax district. So that big map I showed earlier, it's the registered voters within that. So that includes both Madison and Gallatin County registered voters, which is a little different than a straight county water and sewer district election. Includes property owners, but this isn't that. This is an election of a resort tax district voter base. So it's a little different than other elections we've done over the years for bonds we've issued in the past.
Gotcha. There's a quick follow-up to that. The question about Yellowstone Club and Moonlight members, will they be paying for Gallatin water and sewer through the resort tax?
Well, they pay into the resort tax. So the basis of the agreement we set up with the resort tax board was based on the collections within the water and sewer district, which were estimated to be 60%. So that kind of became the start point. So they'll be paying into resort tax. If the 1% goes through, they would be affected by that because it includes the whole district, not just our piece of that. So yes, they'd be paying into it, but presumably their portion doesn't go into the amount that's already being collected within our district boundary. And we were pretty conservative on the numbers as far as the growth. We've had double-digit growth in our resort tax district for the past decade, but we were using 3 to 5% growth projections for our analysis on the financing and the financial impact of a 1% resort tax vote.
Got it. All right, great. Thank you, Ron. Much appreciated.
Excellent. Well, appreciate that presentation once again. And I would encourage viewers, if you've got more questions, the Water Sewer District's very well organized, and that website that Ron showed where they have all their minutes and recorded meetings is a great resource for that. This has been going on for a number of years. So not only can you get a lot of questions answered there, but we'll make sure we do some additional coverage through Outlaw Media the next week or two, because we're going to be up on this vote really quickly. So it was important to give this some good time today, because COVID has taken over the news cycle everywhere, but there's some very important things that are continuing to happen, and this vote is one of those. Transitioning now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the financing market. This does impact a lot of our small business owners as well as property owners. We've got Tim Kent, the branch president for First Security Bank. Tim, thanks for joining us today.
You bet, Eric. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, excellent. Well, first off, kudos to your team. They've done a good job adjusting. This is one of those essential businesses that's had to stay open, and they've been in there in the trenches swinging it out. So I guess just quickly, how's your team doing, and how's the shift to the drive-in business working for you?
Yeah, thanks for asking that up front. Yes, we did have to make a move to close our lobby, and primarily that was to protect the health of our staff and keep that team working so that we could be helpful to the overall community. The bank's functioning as normal, other than having that lobby open. So definitely want to thank all of the customers for making that shift with us and doing all their banking through the drive up and walk up facilities on that end of the building. It has gone very well, better frankly than I thought it would. The community has just been so understanding of why and how we had to do that. So again, kudos to the staff, but also to our customers for making that adjustment with us.
Excellent. Well, Tim, obviously the headline news around the country is this aid that the U.S. government approved, and a lot of the applications for this area, I'm sure, are coming through your bank. So can you maybe describe a little bit about what that landscape's looking like? I mean, can you give us any context to how many people applied through your bank, and are we starting to see the closing of that loop and any funds coming into the system?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're referring to the Paycheck Protection Program, which is put out through the SBA as part of the CARES Act, which again was just passed 2 weeks ago. So this has been an incredibly fast rollout of a $349 billion program. So we've had to learn as we've gone. There really was no playbook, or at least a very, very thin playbook that came with this just about a week ago. So we've all been learning, and as we've been going, which as you might imagine for bankers has been a little bit uncomfortable. But I think at this point the team's got it pulled together, and we're functioning very well. I just got an update on the numbers this afternoon. Out of that $349 billion program, about $250 billion of it has been approved by the SBA. So that leaves about $99 billion of funds that are still available. And Congress, various members and the president have all said that they're willing to add additional monies to that pool if they're needed. So if anybody's contemplating, doing this application, well, there's really no hurry. But on the other hand, I wouldn't delay. If you're interested, we need to get an application into the queue as soon as possible. In terms of First Security Bank's involvement, for Gallatin County as a whole, we are looking at about 800 loans that have been approved. We've got teams working all weekend, in fact, and long hours during the day to get those dispersed. And I'm happy to say that a bunch of them went out today, and many of them even to Big Sky. In Big Sky, we've approved over 80 loans, and those are being dispersed right as we speak. The average size of those is about 100,000. So this is going to make an incredible impact on the Big Sky community. One of the speakers mentioned earlier that that we are probably going to suffer a little more than some other areas of the country because we are tourism based. And these monies are going to be critical in helping some of our businesses span this gap, at least get us into early summer so that, you know, we can keep people employed and be ready for whatever summer tourist season that we are able to realize. So, so that's a big number that we've worked on so far. So that was 80 loans that have been approved for Big Sky, Gallatin, Gateway areas. And I know personally I have about 50 more that are in the queue that we're working through the application approval and then loan documentation and funding process. So it's not over yet by any means. And you know, you'll see a lot of things happening yet this week. So that's a huge thing that we've been able to accomplish so far. And then, you know, again, I want to encourage anybody who's still interested to, you know, consider submitting an application. Businesses who pay wages are, you know, basically that's who's eligible for this program. It impacts people with less than 500 employees. So, you know, that's most of our area by far. And there's even some exceptions to that. Normally, SBA does not allow 501c3s to benefit from programs like that. This was an exception made for the Paycheck Protection Program. And so nonprofits in our community can also cover their wages, you know, for this period of time as well. Self-employed or sole proprietor people, anybody who submits their taxes through a Schedule C, or I should say earnings through a Schedule C, they're also eligible for this program. Unfortunately, people who take their ownership income out through K-1s, which doesn't involve the payroll taxes, those people are not eligible for this program. But otherwise, I mean, it covers the vast majority of businesses in our community. The loan amount is based on 2.5 times what those average wages are. And so it's really meant to cover the pay periods between now or when the loan's dispersed until early June. That's the 8-week period that we're talking about. There's also money in there to pay for mortgage or interest, rent expenses, and even utilities. So, you know, we're purpose of the program is to keep people employed and pay the light bill to keep, you know, a place for them to be employed. So,
Excellent.
you know, the excellent thing about the end of this program is that if the funds are used as they're designated, it becomes a grant. So it's not even a loan if you follow the program guidelines. So great deal all the way around. And again, very much encourage people to still submit applications.
All right. Well, that's a very thorough update, Tim. Thank you for that and impressive numbers. Kind of just high level, I mean, you obviously consult with and work with a lot of the business owners in town. How would you say that the business climate is doing? How are people faring so far?
You know, I think, Eric, that, you know, Big Sky is used to the seasonality. We're used to having that shoulder season or off season. And so most business owners prepare for that. Obviously, it came a month earlier than we were ready for. And now we're not certain what it's going to look like on the back end. So there's just no doubt that there's some anxiety here in terms of what that means for financial planning. I do want to also mention, though, that First Security Bank, you know, on our own with approval of FDIC and our other regulators are able to defer loan payments. And whether that's on a commercial loan or a personal installment loan, or even on a residential mortgage that we hold, we can defer payments for 3 to 6 months. This is really unprecedented, but I think goes right to the heart of your question, and that is, you know, what comes next? Well, we don't know. So, you know, we're willing to layer these deferments on top of the other programs out there to help people get through this, you know, this next 3 to 6 month period.
Excellent. Well, that's That's really helpful to hear. And obviously another huge part of a bank's involvement in a community like this is the involvement in the real estate business, which is arguably the biggest business in Big Sky is real estate. Talk to us a little bit about just the lending environment as it relates to real estate and refinancing and anything that would be good for a listener to hear in regards to that.
Yeah, I think that may be the one area where there's really not much change. Loans are still available. Rates are very good right now. We do ask for a little bit more time for processing of loans, just because we're just so busy with the Paycheck Protection Program type activities. But other than that, it's really not a bad time to look at refinancing an existing mortgage, or anybody who's in the process of a transaction. You really don't need to have any concerns about funds being available. As I said, rates are at a very low level, and everything in that realm should function as normal.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. And obviously it's in our lifetime, some of the lowest interest rates we've ever seen. So for those who are considering that, it's obviously a great time. Let me see if Joe's got anything from the audience at this time, and we'll otherwise move on down the train.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And thank you, Tim. Much appreciated. I was just, just a couple questions out there. I was just curious, what are some of the big questions you're answering from the community during sort of this very different economic climate? Is there a concentration of specific questions that you're getting from some of your clients?
Most of it, Joe, is centered around the SBA programs. There's not only the PPP program we just discussed. SBA also has the economic injury disaster loan program that they administer directly. And that's where most business owners are focusing right now is how do they layer these various options together to get them through the foreseeable future. And that's by far most of the conversations for the last 2 weeks.
Got it. Well, no, thanks so much for everything you guys are doing down there. And I know there's a lot of questions and a lot of hours you guys are putting in. So thanks very much.
You bet. Happy to do it.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. Shifting gears to, as I stated at on the onset of this, I think at the end of this thing, he and his staff might be called hometown heroes. And that's from one of our 3 great grocery stores in Big Sky. But we have Josh Treasure joining us from Roxy's. He's the manager, dishwasher, janitor, car attendant. He does it all. So Josh, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, of course. It's good to be here.
Excellent. Josh, maybe, I'd like to rewind to mid-March and when you saw that first big run hit your store and you had to walk down that aisle the first time and see shelves cleaned out. What was that like? And what will be the story that you will tell future generations about that moment of walking in and seeing something that was unexpected like that and kind of how you had to handle it?
Yeah, I mean, I still remember you coming in the store and saying, remember this moment. And I definitely do, because, we've had shelves cleared out before, but generally you can reorder product. And the difficulty that we ran into is we would reorder product and it wouldn't come because everybody nationwide was buying in a frenzy. It was baffling to see the amount of product going out the door and amount of product that people were buying, and that our warehouses couldn't handle that ask or need. And we've gotten caught up now, but what I would say to future generations is that's a difficult question, just because I don't know if this will set a precedent for later on. I will remember that moment vividly when I walked into the store, and when I woke up the next morning and looked at revenue and saw the vast amount of sales that we did over a weekend that was supposed to start slowing down.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about the transition you subsequently have made to be able to keep the lights on, and for those that haven't been in the store lately, maybe some of the changes that they might see to be able to safely be able to shop there, or some of the alternatives they've got if they don't want to walk in the store.
Yeah, so we've done delivery service since we opened, and also curbside pickup, but it's become more well known that we do those services. So if anybody wants to have groceries delivered or picked up, they can go to roxysmarket.com. Those are two services we offer and encourage right now. We ask that you give us 48 hours notice if you're going to go that route. If you do decide to come to the store, we have gloves, face masks for free for all customers. All staff are wearing gloves and face masks, and we change them often. I have over 10,000 face masks on order that'll be here next week, and another 3,000 KN95s for staff to use. And we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure everything is sanitized, clean, gloves are worn, masks are worn, and every aspect of the shopping experience, from distribution to delivery, curbside pickup, handling of food, is done properly and safe.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. Out of curiosity, what has been the top selling item since all this began?
Toilet paper was the #1 selling item for quite some time, and I wasn't able to get a read on why. And then hand sanitizer, of course, rubbing alcohol, paper towels, Kleenex, canned goods, flour. Yeah, there was a lot of very odd items that we ran out of. The toilet paper, I couldn't wrap my head around. You know, there was one guy that did a study that said, basically, if you buy 2 containers of Costco toilet paper, that would last you over 6 months for a family of 4. And people were coming in and buying 8 to 10, you know, and I get it. It was a mass buyout, and everybody was scared and wanted to get the items while they could. But just know that the distribution and manufacturers have the product. What's causing the shortages is the mass buying of product.
Yeah. Okay. Can you talk about any involvement you guys have with the food bank, and you know, in terms of being able to also help out for those that are less fortunate in our community?
Yeah, we do weekly donations to the food bank, and I've also been working with Sarah to source products in large quantities. And that is difficult at this time because basically everything is on an allocated amount from warehouses. But we were able to pull some strings and get some product here for the food bank. And also, this has been on posts with Facebook and all over. If anybody is in need of food and can't afford food, or is having it in a difficult situation, call or email me, and we will be glad to help out.
Excellent. Well, that's a great community spirit there. Before we switch over to Joe, and he's going to dive into some questions about your involvement with the Sustainability Committee and Big Sky, because it's once again important not to forget that we've got a lot of things happening outside the context of COVID. Anything else from the grocery store perspective that you'd like to share with the audience? I mean, obviously, it sounds like you're caught up on stocking, and you're helping run a lot of different alternatives for people that don't want to come in the store, or those that do a safe way to do it. Anything else you'd like to share with the viewership?
I mean, we had to change every aspect of our business model. The only thing that I would like to share is, if you're in the store, just compliment the employees. They're under a lot of stress, and they're doing a phenomenal job. The business would not be open without our team members, and we have a fantastic team put together. But just keep in mind, when you're in there, or curbside pickup or delivery, a small thank you goes a very long way. And know that every process we are doing from start to finish, and the distributors we work with from start to finish are doing everything possible to make sure that everything is as safe and sanitary as possible.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Josh, and I will be a testament to that. I've seen your hardworking staff, and they are crushing it. So, Joe, why don't we dovetail into the future of our world, hopefully, and talk about sustainability and how to make Big Sky a wonderful, sustainable community.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, I just want to say, thanks to you and your team. I know you guys are on the front lines. Everybody's working hard. You're doing a fantastic job down there. Same with the country market and with Roxy's. But we all really appreciate it as a community. But you're involved in the Sustainability Network organization. And I'd like to ask you just to kind of introduce our listeners to that and kind of what you guys are up to.
Yes, so we originally the Sustainability Committee branched off under the Visit Big Sky organization, but we had decided that we needed to be our own nonprofit, so we broke off, and it is now called Big Sky SNOW. SNOW standing for Sustainable Network Organization, and we have branched off and created a steering committee and subcommittees. And there's subcommittees comprised of 3 to 5 people. We have 26 committee members total. The steering committee is comprised of myself, Marnie Hayes, Anya Bullis, Sierra Wolf, Blair Moon, and Matt Pellman. And not only the steering committee, but the committee itself is a fantastic group of people that live in Big Sky and are very passionate about the subject. And what's unique about it is everybody's passionate in very different categories. And so that allows us to touch on every aspect of sustainability. Currently, what we're working on, because we want to accomplish some goals to get some momentum with our organization, is going all plastic free and switching over all plastic water bottles to aluminum. So we're working with a company that's actually ready to deliver to Big Sky, and that would be every business is on board to switch over, but with the coronavirus situation, it has delayed the delivery. So we're planning to do that in May, and basically every single water bottle in Big Sky will be aluminum. And with that, we realized that there needs to be recycling needs. So we are setting up recycling centers, 3 different recycling centers throughout town center in Big Sky, and a central recycling location in Big Sky as well, and a compost location as well. And most restaurants, for the viewers to know, have switched over to compost and recycling. And it's becoming more frequent and used, which is a huge plus.
Right on. No, that's great. That's fantastic. You mentioned how obviously certain things are, everything is affected by this COVID-19 pandemic. How is that changing things for the sustainability group? And are you guys have operations ground to a halt? Are you continuing on? Are you focusing your efforts elsewhere?
No, we speak daily. The steering committee, we all speak daily. The committee is having a meeting Thursday. We did cancel our meeting last week, but we're going forward with it this month. It's actually been quite nice because I'm still working, but the other steering committee members aren't. And so they've had a lot of time, and they've been able to tackle a lot of accomplishments that we wouldn't have had time had this not happened. So it's actually been a plus with that. The one obstacle we're running into is obviously with funding. We want those funds to go towards coronavirus needs. And so we're trying to get creative with funds of how we can make these goals and missions that we have to be accomplished.
Yeah, no, that's great. And just last question, you mentioned you guys are a full nonprofit. This is 501c3 status.
Yep, so we've applied. What we're doing currently is running our funding through other nonprofits who have given us the okay to do so. So we've applied, and it'll be probably a 1 to 3 month process before we're a full nonprofit 501c3.
Got it. Well, it's a great thing you guys are taking on. Anything else you just wanted to say to the viewers just about what you guys have in the works with the sustainability group?
Yeah, our mission ultimately is to become the most sustainable resort destination in the world. And when you drive through Big Sky or Yellowstone or come here, you realize how beautiful it is. And we want to preserve that. And that is our main goal, is to make sure when guests come here, they see that we are taking the initiative to preserve this beauty.
Excellent. Josh, that's great, man. Thank you very much for your time and really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I really appreciate being on. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate this. It's great what you guys are doing for the community.
Well, thank you for that. And I love that quote, the most sustainable community in the world. And one of the nice things that I've noticed in the news feeds and a lot of communication across various communities is during this pandemic, one of the things that's also brought to the forefront are these really thoughtful opportunities like this in groups like this. And through all of this madness, there's all of a sudden becoming more focus on the things that seem to really matter to families and individuals and communities. And I think this could become an amazing centering point for Big Sky through this as we grow, and we're growing at this very fast rate, as Ron and crew pointed out. There's also an opportunity to grow in a very thoughtful way and make us, the most sustainable community in certainly in the resort world. So let's do it. All right.
Eric, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We do have one question from the audience. For Josh, could I throw that out there real quick?
Sure.
Josh, this comes from Mike. It says, I'm curious why you feel that eliminating all plastic will lead to more sustainable future in Big Sky. Do you feel that other materials are more sustainable in other product applications?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that plastic is killing the oceans and the planet. Aluminum is cheap, and obviously manufactured is a little more expensive than plastic, but it can be reused. Is glass feasible? No. Aluminum is, and plastic is showing up in microparticles throughout our ocean, in our snow, in Big Sky. It is causing issues and will continue to cause issues. Initially, when we created this wonderful chemical substance, it didn't cause issues throughout the world, but now it is, and we need to find a solution for it.
Yep, agree with that. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time for that answer. Back to you, Eric. We'll go. Excellent.
All right, now shifting to a gal that's probably fed more of us in this town than just about anybody. Alex Omania, the owner of the amazing Lotus pad. She's coming to us live from her virtual beach in Kauai. Alex, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Eric. Aloha.
So let me dive into it. We haven't had someone on that's a restaurant entrepreneur and owner thus far. So maybe talk to us a little bit about, how the restaurant world is treating you. How's Lotus Pad doing? And how's this transition going for you from going from what would normally be a full house in spring break to, a takeout business on curbside?
Yeah, well, thanks for doing this and including me in it. We are doing really well, I think, at the Lotus Pad. Obviously, like Tim had mentioned, we are all of us restaurant owners are prepared for off seasons. And so we spend a lot of our time saving money and getting ready for it. And it came early. So, that's not always the best scenario. But having said that, I think, mentally, I at least feel prepared for this scenario. We're doing off-season numbers and, just trying to figure out innovative ways to stay busy and keep people employed. I think that's really the biggest thing is to really focus on keeping people employed and kind of keeping the community engaged in something that feels good. So food is one of those things. So
absolutely. Well, and you guys have been a big part of this community for a long time. Talk to me about what it's like to be a small business owner and to have gone through this process. And did you have to lay people off? And what percentage of your team did you lose? And have you gone through some of these programs that Tim's talked about? Have you tried to apply for any of this aid?
Yeah, we lost like 85% of our staff right away. And, we take a lot of the J1s and the foreigners. So, it was really quick and abrupt, and they were all scared because they were afraid they couldn't go home. So the whole thing was really chaotic and a little bit difficult for about a week, but, we handled it well. And, in terms of moving forward and looking to what our needs might be, yes, I did apply for the PPP loan as well as the EIDL, and I did the EIDL right away. And Joe at First Security has graciously helped me with that. And it's a great program, and I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that that's available, because, you know, without funds and without March is our time to make money. Without that month, it's really detrimental to the survival of all the months leading into the winter season. And so, you know, as far as the programs, they're great. And I did take advantage of them absolutely right away.
Well, you know, are you planning on staying open through the spring, and how long? Because obviously one of the changes that we could have is there are a lot of people here that normally probably would have left by now, but they're going to be here through the end of April and into May. I mean, for example, at some of the clubs, I know that there's a lot of folks that have been here for weeks, if not months. So do you plan on staying open?
Yeah, man, I want to keep it alive. Of course. I want to keep people employed. That's really important to me. I don't, you know, the staff that I have on now, they wouldn't be making as much money. You know, they have families and kids, and unemployment isn't going to suffice for their lifestyle, and their partners have lost their jobs. So, you know, I feel like I sort of have a couple of responsibilities as a business owner. One is to keep people employed. And two is to kind of just sort of maybe show the community that, you know, we're strong and we'll get through this. And, you know, where focus goes, energy flows. So, you know, we're focused on staying open, making it safe, keeping it, you know, as safe as possible with all these new guidelines, and cooking good food, and hopefully making life somewhat fun and you know, fun and delicious.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I can envision a drunken noodles right now. How do you envision, or, you know, at the very beginning of this, we heard Matt say that they might reach out to hopefully business owners like you in terms of advice on how we begin this transition process to reopening. So the restaurant business has been something that's been a focus of our government right away to close down. Restaurants and bars were almost the first thing. So how do you as a restaurant owner envision that process going or how do you envision turning those lights back on and welcoming people back for the first time?
You know, it's interesting. There's so many guidelines with the health department, and we're under such scrutiny all the time with safety and sanitation. And, you know, outside of maybe foodborne illnesses, viruses and colds and stuff, I feel like, you know, it's very easy for us to manage our safety and sanitation because we've always had to. So as far as getting back open and how I envision it, you know, just obviously still keeping, you know, strong with those safety and sanitation guidelines, but also I think, you know, having an environment that's fun and open and not fearful. I think fear is a big thing. People are scared, and, you know, it's hard for me to say what I envision in opening, because the world's going to change and these guidelines are probably going to change. I see a lot of hand sanitizer. So, you know, and a lot of fun events. I do see that. I see a lot of fun things that we can do, and staying innovative and finding new ways to sort of feed people's, you know, families and keep with the new way of how people are looking at life. So
sure. Well, since you're our first restaurateur on this, and I will hereby proclaim that you're the head of all the restaurants in Big Sky today as their spokesperson, what would you have to say to our audience in terms on behalf of the other restaurants who've kept the lights on? And is there any need that you have got from a community other than ordering lots and tipping even more?
Yeah, I would just say support the restaurants, order food, try to do it once a week. And you know what? Like Josh said, you know, we're doing a lot of different things that we had never done that we always wanted to do. And this kind of pushed us in that direction, like grab and goes. And if you don't have the money to eat out, the Lotus Pad isn't cheap by any means. We have $10 grab and goes. You can call and order them. And like Josh said, call me, text me, email me personally. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to keep people fed and happy. If, you know, that means giving them a deal on a pad thai, then I'm willing to do that. So I think support the local restaurants, just even if it's $10 at, you know, by word of mouth, or a cocktail, order cocktails. You know, our margins are smaller with cocktails as far as our food cost, our alcohol costs. So, you know, we have alcohol and we can sell it and we can deliver it. So.
Yeah. That was yeah, absolutely. So I think that's great advice. Anything else, Alex, from your perspective, just on this process, or anything that, you know, learning wise or a memory wise that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, you know, I think that, like I said, you know, where focus goes, energy flows. And there's so many opportunities right now. Like even Tim said, you know, loan rates are really low. And you know, you can go to Roxy's right now, talk to Josh if you're hungry and you don't have any money. He'll give you a loaf of bread. I don't know, but there's a lot of opportunities. People in this community are so generous and willing to give, and it's a time for giving. And so I would just say, you know, look at the positive and give as much as you can right now. Even if you don't have anything, find a way to give somebody something. So that's my advice.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today, Alex. Thanks for being a big part of this community for so many years, and obviously been a great employer and a very much a great example of what I think it takes to be a community player. So thank you for that.
Thanks,
I'll turn it over to Joe and see if our audience has got a couple loose questions to go back through some of the other panelists, and then we'll bring a nice wrap to this session.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Alex, great to have you. It's good to see you in Kauai. I'm glad that you're able to travel in these times. Aloha. You know, we've got a question from the audience here from Paul. You know, Paul says, I at Ideal Photography Inc. also applied for the EIDL loan. I'd like to know if Alex has heard anything from the SBA about her EIDL application.
I have not heard a single thing, and I applied for that before the PPL, but I did get approval from First Security for the Paycheck Protection Program. So yeah, no.
No, nothing.
Nothing.
Way to go, Paul. TBD.
Yeah.
Well, look, thanks, Alex. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. You guys are doing a great job over there. And yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate you guys for doing this.
Sure.
So something that we haven't done in past weeks, but I'd like to do today, is I just would like to go through each panelist and see if they've got a closing statement that they'd like to throw out. And then what I'd like to do is just to ask each panelist to tell us one thing that they're grateful for. So I think we're going to start at the top. Our representatives from the health department are gone, so we'll start with the Ron and Scott. So Ron, why don't we see if is there anything else that you'd like to add from your presentation today, and what's something you're grateful for?
I don't know if Ron lost his video. He might have lost his audio.
Right. Well, Scott, you're talking on behalf of him then.
Okay. I'll say that behind the scenes to bring that resort tax in front of the voters was a lot of creative thinking done by the Resort Tax Board and the Big Sky County Water and Sewer District back in November and December. And to see those two groups come together on their own accord and figure out a solution for Big Sky as a whole was very, very impressive. And I'm grateful to work for a client like that is so forward thinking and looking out for the environment and what's best for the people around them, not just within their boundaries, was a great experience for me.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. And I will echo that. We've been covering it for years, and there's a lot of thought that went into this vote, and it's a very important vote. And I want to remind everyone, as Ron said, that those ballots definitely need to be in the mail by April 28th. And it's always important to vote, but especially on a local level, it's very important to vote now. Tim, any closing thoughts from your perspective in your business and something you're grateful for?
You know, start with the latter first. I'm phoning a friend here for help, but I'm going to have to wing it. So, you know, I think what I'm grateful for, Eric, is living in Big Sky. Yeah, I would really rather be here than anywhere else to go through this experience. I have relatives, like many people, all over the country, a brother in New York City. Our experience is so different from what millions of people are going through there in particular. And, you know, it just very much makes me grateful that we're where we are. We still have a very high quality of life. And, you know, you can't help but be grateful just for that fact alone. From a business side, you know, money's not going to solve this issue. I mean, we're going to do our part and get everybody, you know, as much funding as we can. But, you know, back to Alex's comments, it's the people here in Big Sky that are going to make it all worthwhile when we're done. And we will get through this at some point. And, you know, the two things kind of tie together. We're still going to be Big Sky. We're still going to have a great place, a great business community. And I look forward to being part of it for years to come.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Tim. And, you know, the stat that really stood out to me is 800 loans already approved from your entities in the county, and 8 of that 80 already in Big Sky. So that's a big movement in the right direction. Josh, anything to close out from your perspective and something you're grateful for?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say thank you to the Big Sky community. Obviously, I'm grateful to be here. I moved here 6 years ago, and I was greeted with open arms, and everybody I've met has been more than welcoming. And I consider Roxy's team members my family, and a lot of the community of Big Sky my family. And I love this place. I love the community, and would do anything to protect and preserve it to the fullest extent.
Thank you for that. And once again, echoing that sentiment of thanking your team for all the hard work they've done. Alex, anything that you'd like to share that you didn't get a chance to cover, or something that you're grateful for you'd like to share with our audience?
Sure, yeah. I just want to say, you know, to look at this situation as a gift. You know, we all, not all of us, I shouldn't say, but a lot of people have a gift right now to slow down and be with your family and really focus on the present moment. And, you know, like Tim said, money isn't going to fix this, and nothing's going to fix anything unless you fix yourself. So this is a blessing in disguise. It really is. And I'm really grateful to this community, because I've never in my life known a group of people that have cared so much about their community and worked together in crises like this to help other people survive and get through it. And, you know, I just would rather not be anywhere else in the world, maybe except Kauai. But even then, you know, I don't have the community of Big Sky. So I just want to say I'm really grateful and thankful for that. Thanks.
Excellent. Well, and I love your quote about where the focus goes, energy flows. So we'll make sure we steal that quote and put it in the upcoming edition of Explore Big Sky. Joe, any closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, you know, this is just such an interesting time for everybody to be in. It is an experience to be reporting on this community, with all of you guys, with our our past panelists, and with everybody, you know, who's supporting, you know, the work we're trying to do as we try to support all of the work you guys are trying to do. It's really a hand in glove effort, and you know, I'm grateful to be a part of the community and offering to be able to provide everyone that we can with the information that they need to make it through a really unsettling and uncertain time. You know, I really thank you guys for being here and taking the time to speak to your respective businesses and organizations, and all the support that you're giving us as you know, your local media source. So thank you guys, and we really appreciate, you know, everything you're doing.
All right, well, session number 3 is in the books. You know, when I started this a few weeks ago with Joe and the Outlaw team, we stated that one of the reasons that we felt this was important is because you as our audience challenged us. We did some surveys, and the overwhelming response was more communication. And we've got a unique platform. We're not incorporated. There's not a government to help run this effort in Big Sky. Big Sky is run by local business leaders and volunteers who sit on boards of great charities. And it takes a village to make Big Sky happen. And so this format is going to be done like this every week right now, where we're going to bring together these community leaders to help share information, everything from important COVID topics like the county discussed today, to this 3-year effort with the 1% vote for the needed expansion of the water and sewer district, to what it's like to run the local bank or restaurant or grocery store, and past issues of this, talking everything about the Big Sky relief effort and all the different mechanisms that are being put in place to help prop up Big Sky and move forward. But there is going to be life after COVID and the coronavirus. And so the format for Town Hall is going to go like this. We're going to continue to run it on a weekly basis while this pandemic has really got us, you know, around the neck and is causing the havoc that it is. And then this is going to slowly transition to something where we're going to do it twice a month. And then after things calm down a bit, we're going to keep this platform going once a month, because it's a good way in an hour or 90 minutes to be able to deliver important messages to you. But once again, to reach out to the viewership, you are our audience. We are your news source in Big Sky. Let us know. If you've got ideas of other speakers, please let us know. If questions didn't get addressed today, please let us know. We can reach out to the panelists to make sure that we're covering these in a thoughtful way. Remember to vote. And also remember that great advice that Matt gave us, is that as they transition out of this, we need to do it in a slow and deliberate manner, because we do not want to slip backwards and lose traction on all this. You know, we've had to make a lot of sacrifices. We're on day 28 since Big Sky closed, and none of us want to go backwards. So let's make sure that we all are really responsible about how we do this. When we get the lights turned back on, we're going to have one heck of a party. And it's going to be a party with some great live music or some bucking bulls or something fun in combination there between. So we'll see you next week. Once again, there's different ways to get information. Explore Big Sky newspapers in print. The Town Hall is emailed out. You can subscribe to that on explorebigsky.com. We have an app, Explore Big Sky. You can also download that. Remember to support the local businesses, be a good neighbor, and the quarter where focus goes, energy flows. Good night, everybody.